Good evening, and welcome to the Thursday Camera Artist Guild Critique. I am your host, George DeLoache. I'm a portrait artist and photographer's coach, and this is where we help photographers learn to master the photographic arts. Here we do critique. This is where you send your images in, and a second set of eyes takes a look at those images and tries to help you find ways that you can improve the quality of your work. Regardless of whether you're just beginning your love affair with photography or whether you've been like me in love with it for 50 years, there's always room to find new places to grow and develop. So definitely be willing to come involve yourself in the process. Now, if you're there and you decide, hey, look, I'd like to become part of the process, how do I do it? I'll tell you. Simply go over to Facebook and find the Camera Artist Guild page and ask to join. I'll bring you into the group, and then you simply write a message and attach your image to that image. Your message can be how the settings that you use for the camera or any other pertinent information you feel you want to share with that image. Let's get over to the broadcast and take a look at some of those images. Okay, stand by. Okay, and we got George Butler. George, you got several up here, so we're going to kind of shoot through it. You brought in one, which is your model here, and the others are sports, so we'll look at those sports ones as we get in there. Remember to always include all of the body appendages if you're going to do a full length. If you're not a full length, don't lose the foot over here. The foot is chopped off over there. That is a bit of a problem. And watch her hand positions. Change her hand position around a little bit. She could have just as easily moved forward on the rock and then put her thumb behind her torso, her forefingers in front of her torso, and that would have been a much more comfortable position for her hand. That would have dropped her shoulder down so that it didn't look quite so awkward. But your exposure is on, and I like your lens choice and your shallow depth of field. Okay, this is another one, and this is another George Butler. You did get peak action. A couple of the sports shooters mentioned it. I agree with them that the action is in the receiver and the tackler, and all the rest of the stuff out here is unnecessary. This has got to be, looks like training camp to me, practice, because you got, I don't think these are everybody's in shorts and stuff like that. That doesn't look like an actual game, but let's see what happens if you were to just crop it in. You could, on this one, it's going to have to be a vertical crop because, let's see here, there we go. Maybe something like that would be a little more. We dropped them in there on the 1/3 compositional line. We've left enough room so that the action is moving the camera left, it'll go out, and we eliminated a lot of the elements there that were distracting from the main focal point. So just keep that into consideration when you are framing and when you're doing your post-production. And last image, watch out for cropping off body parts. I know you are really going for the peak action, but all the rest of it is part of that. So zoom out, move with your feet, pay attention to your surroundings, and there you go, just work it out. Okay, this one is G. Johnson, and there's a lot to like about this one, G. I find a lot of things in there that I think are interesting and well worth consideration. The thing that bothers me, I love the model, the tennis position, all of that. The depth of field choice was fine. I might like to push that depth of field a little bit more to get the background a little more out of line. The camera angle's fine. What bugs me is the tennis net. And I know you were trying to add it compositionally, but it blocks the model. It blocks the model and most of her torso. And so anything that detracts from the model is not adding to the image. At least that's my opinion. Other people may have different opinions, but that's the way I see it. I love this portion of it up here. The face, the hands, the tennis racket, all of that is right on point. But that net just doesn't work for me. This, on the other hand, works. The crop, I would have moved the crop down. You're almost about to hip joint crop. Drop it down to the thighs. You want to crop between the joints. So it should be down about middle of her thigh. That would be a perfect crop for this image. And other than that, it's nice. Okay, 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞. And I looked at this image, Gary, and when I first looked at it, I thought, is that a composite? Are those all three the same guy? Because their faces look so similar to one another that I thought you had done a composite. And then I realized there are different numbers on the jersey. And if you had done that and had them switch numbers, maybe you did, you know? And they got different color sneakers. But it's still... It's nice, it's well executed, it feels good, so that's what I expect from you on the sports stuff anyway. Okay, here we go again, one more 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞. Now on this one, Gary, I'm gonna point out a couple of things. Whenever you have something pointing towards the camera, be it the neck of a guitar, the golf club, baseball bat, tennis racket, arm with the pointed finger, it's got to be sharp. You got to be. If this thing says P&G or Spalding or whatever, you got to be able to read that club. And right now, because of the shallow depth of field that you chose in order to keep the background out of focus, the clubs protrude into the foreground. Now, is there a way to do this and accomplish it? Yeah, but it gets a little complicated, and the only way you could do this one would be focus stacking. You can use hyperfocus, and hyperfocus operates under the principle that you have a greater distance, a depth of field behind the point that you're focusing at than you do in front of the point that you're focusing at. So you, rather than focusing on their face, you would focus on a spot somewhere up the elbow, somewhere along about elbow range. If you have to check your depth of field and see what your depth of field is. I have a depth of field app on my phone. You can get them for any phone, Android, iPhone. Get a depth of field calculator. It'll let you plug in your camera, your lens, and your f-stop, and it'll tell you what that depth of field is. Some of them will even give you the hyperfocal distance. So let's say you had a 1 or 2 or 3 foot depth of field. Let's say just figure 3 feet with this one. And the club is about maybe 2.5 feet away from the subject. You could, if you have a 3 foot depth of field, that means that you've got maybe 1.5 feet in front or a foot in front and about 1.5 feet in the back. So you can focus up here 1.5 feet or so farther up her arm, and her face would still be sharp, but the club would be closer to the near end where your depth of field begins to fall off on the near side. That's one way. The way I'd pull this one off, and also you want to keep that club out of her face so that it's not blocking her face. The way I would pull this off is with focus stacking, and that means you're going to do 2 shots. And I'm going to work on, since you're outdoors and you're moving fast, I'm going to be working from a monopod. Tripod would be better if you can set this one up. A tripod is great, but a monopod if you can't, but a tripod is the best. Set that tripod up, take 1 exposure, and you got to do this quick. Take 1 exposure, focus on the club, 1 exposure, and focus on the subject. Just click, change, And if you could get one in between, that would be good as well. But just nothing else, just change your little focal distance. If you're using autofocus, you get on that little daisy wheel there in the back, click, 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 put it on the club, click, put it on the face, click. And you can do it in a fraction of a couple of seconds. So, and you want to get them to hold their expression. And then in post-production, bring that in, and with layer mask, then you can bring the focus back in to the front where it's focused there, and that's called focus stacking, and check it. You know, look it up and you can get some more information on it. Okay, there we go. Okay, Gary, thank you.